The Knicks weren't supposed to be as tough as the Pistons. This is supposed to be real difficult. Well, somebody forgot to tell the Knicks that. So we're getting into it next on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, welcome in to Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast. I'm Alex Wolfe. I'm editor-in-chief of Knicks site The Strickland, which you can find at thestrick.land. He's Gavin Schall, your favorite play-by-play broadcaster's favorite play-by-play broadcaster, and the Saturday co-host of the Locked On NBA podcast. And we wanted to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. We wanted to also thank you for making Locked On Knicks your first listen today and every day, whether you're checking us out on your favorite podcast platform or taking in the sights and sounds on YouTube. We appreciate you making us part of your daily routine. Make sure you hit the auto download function on your favorite podcast app or the notification bell on YouTube so you never miss an episode. On today's show, you guessed it, we're talking about the Knicks playoff win over the Detroit Pistons, 123-112. A 21-0 run for the New York Knicks in this game to close this one out. Karl-Anthony Towns, in my opinion, one of his best games as a New York Knick thus far on both ends of the floor. Jalen Brunson has what seems like kind of a bad game and yet still finds his way into 34 points and 8 assists. That's just what playoff Jalen Brunson does. OG Anunoby, fantastic game for him as well. So we got lots of stuff to talk about on this episode. But if just a audio podcast episode is not enough for you, your favorite podcast now has a newsletter. Introducing the Locked On Knicks Daily Newsletter, one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at lockedondaily.com. That's lockedondaily.com, and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Knicks newsletter. And if that's not enough to get you to subscribe to the newsletter, you could potentially win a $2,500 Best Buy gift card. Had to say that a couple times. It seemed too good to be true. A $300 Game Time gift card or a $200 Fanatics gift card if you just sign up for the newsletter between now and April 30th. So you got 10 days left. So use those 10 days wisely. Sign up for the Locked On Knicks Daily Newsletter. You could be entered into a pool to win one of those 3 fantastic prizes. So definitely make sure to do that. Gavin, without any further ado, let's start talking about this game. 123-112. The Knicks beat the Pistons. And I went and watched with some of my Strickland compadres for this game. And we were sitting there and we were all getting a little itchy at the end of the third quarter. It was like, oh man, like this doesn't look good. Things are looking a little shaky here. And then came Cam Payne with one of the most, out of body experiences. Playoff Cam Payne is just, he's built different. That guy is, he's just so good in the playoffs. 11 points in the fourth quarter for him, 12 in the fourth quarter for Jalen Brunson. Karl-Anthony Towns had a fantastic game as well. I'll leave it to you where you want to start on this amazing game, and honestly, like, just next level comeback from the Knicks. This was the best version of themselves in that fourth quarter of this game.
Yeah, so the Pistons, great stat from Mike Breen on the broadcast. The Pistons coming into this were 38-6 when leading coming into the fourth quarter. The Knicks were 6-24. Detroit actually started the fourth quarter pretty well. The Knicks had this initial burst led by Cat to cut the lead to 3. Pistons stretch it back out to 8, and then from there it's the 21-0 run. Cam Payne, that electric 8 points, including a 3 off a Josh Hart rebound. He had a step back 3 over Cade. At that point, it was 13-0. But I thought the heart of the run, no pun intended, was Karl-Anthony Towns, Josh Hart, and Jalen Brunson, and in particular, Cat's defensive playmaking. His rebounding, where the Pistons were kind of bullying him for rebounds early in the fourth quarter, was excellent. He kept getting boards in traffic. After Cade cooked him at the level of the screen in the third quarter, Cat just like almost single-handedly shut him down multiple times in the fourth. Like at one point, stole an inbounds pass, got it ahead to Hart, then to Brunson for a layup, then another steal where he poked it away from Cade, again ahead to Hart, who left it off to Brunson. That made it a 17-0 run. And then just his playmaking, like he had a short roll where he wrapped it around Asar Thompson to hit Hart for another layup, then went right at Asar Thompson, who wasn't down in his stance, for another isolation layup, hit Hart one more time for one more layup to make it a 10-point lead. That essentially put the game away at the end. I thought it was the most synergistic that Josh Hart has looked with the starters in a long time, particularly with Cade and Brunson. The 10 days off clearly did him some good in terms of his knee health and getting to play with a lot of energy. And then Jalen Brunson, to your point, started this game 2 for 13, made 10 of his last 14 shots. And a lot of them late in this game came in transition and were really, really easy. Did have one tough isolation bucket on Asar Thompson, but I mean, I don't know how you can focus anywhere else but Karl-Anthony Towns defense. There were a few blunders in there, Alex, but I thought from the get-go in this game, he was very, very solid on that end of the floor. And then in the fourth quarter was like arguably his best, most impactful quarter as a Knick that didn't involve him just getting insanely hot from the field.
Yeah, and I mean, I think so much of it came down to just trusting him, right? Like it didn't seem like they were trying to protect him at all on D. It seemed like they just like maybe he and Tibbs had a conversation before the game and Tibbs said, "Hey, it like I'll leave you out there. Like I feel good enough about Mitch, and whatever." And Mitch, like not to I don't want to take anything away from him. Like I thought that he dominated in a lot of his minutes. And we saw our first like true blue full long stretch of two big action.
Yeah.
This whole season, really. Like we've only seen it for like minute or two bursts, it seems like the entire regular season. And all of a sudden we just get gifted this like 10-ish minute stretch where they just go too big, and it kind of swung the game at that particular moment. But I mean, Cat was just everywhere. I mean, he was blitzing towards Cade, which was a huge part of getting Cade kind of off kilter a little bit. I thought that what they were doing, which was smart to me, was just sort of like saying, okay, we're going to throw enough of a double at Cade and then know where he's going to go with the ball, or at least have an idea enough that we'll stall him that extra half second and then buy ourselves the time that we need to rotate over to the shooters and whatever. And I felt like as a result, the Knicks just ran into so many less times where they were like completely tilted and then just giving up wide open threes to like Malik Beasley or Tim Hardaway Jr. or whatever. And that's not to say they didn't give up any, but they did enough to affect those. But other than that, I mean, Cat was just, he got his hands everywhere. I mean, he was getting so many steals. And the fact that he had 6 stocks in this game, just insane. Like not a number that you ever think that you're going to see out of Karl-Anthony Towns. So huge props to him. I mean, this was just like a next level defensive game for him. And even down to like the blocks, which didn't happen during that fourth quarter run, but which were like very impactful when both of them happened. One on Tobias Harris, when Tobias was like kind of going crazy in the first half, he just like swats the crap out of him as he's trying to get to the hoop. And then another one on Asar Thompson in the third quarter, when that was again like when the Pistons were kind of running and things were starting to get away from the Knicks a little bit. Cat just came up in a huge moment, against Asar Thompson down low and just ate his lunch and blocked that one, and just completely killed that opportunity for them. So I thought it was just on both ends his best. And to say nothing of the fact that on offense, like the whole first half when Brunson was kind of struggling, I kept just saying to myself and saying rather loudly out loud, like, why are they not just going to Cat over and over again? Like they were putting Tobias Harris on him. And it's like, I'm sorry, like Tobias Harris isn't even a good defender normally, and asking him to defend up a position, like, are you kidding me? Like, just keep abusing this matchup. And they didn't do it enough in the first half, I didn't think. And by the time the second half rolled around, I thought they did a much better job of attacking that more and getting Cat more opportunities, and it paid off big for them down the stretch, to the point where like, again, like we've been kind of harping on the fact that Cat has not been shooting a lot of threes and all that. And I still wish that he could have gotten some more opportunities up, but 1 of 3 from 3, and it didn't matter because he shot 10 of 14 overall. There was nothing that Detroit had in their bag to stop him. And it wouldn't have mattered if they put Jalen Duren on him or anything else. The fact of the matter is, the reason they didn't put Duren on him to begin with is probably because they realized like he'll probably get in foul trouble because Cat is too good for him on offense. It kind of similar to what happened where they said, we're going to put Asar Thompson on Jalen Brunson early in this game. And they got Asar Thompson out of there within 2.5 minutes because he couldn't keep himself under control trying to defend Jalen Brunson. So just honestly, we've been crapping on the guy a lot recently, but I thought a really nice job by Tibbs reading this game, trusting his guys in certain scenarios. It seemed obvious that a lot of guys were empowered in a certain way by him through the game plan. and it paid off big time. Like, and Cat was, I think, the biggest beneficiary of all of it.
Yeah, I think I have excuse me, I've kind of mixed feelings on how they schemed up stuff for Cat. I do think that the 3-pointers are a big litmus test for the Knicks' health offensively, and maybe part of the reason, like when he was 0 for 1 through 3 quarters, they had only scored 82 points at that point, despite the fact that OG Anunoby had a volcanic first half. Of course, Brunson being very cold was maybe even the bigger factor there. But I thought it was interesting that they started Duren on Hart, because we were sort of like openly speculating all week, like how quickly is Detroit going to make that adjustment? I mean, it seems like every quote unquote smart team in the league down the stretch of the year is saying, all right, we're going to put our center on Hart, we're going to put our wing on Cat, and then essentially just double team Cat. I think Detroit's biggest mistake in this game is that they did that strategy, but then they weren't double teaming Cat. Like Duren was guarding Hart for most of the game as if he were a shooter. And then Cat, after like basically like just not really being all that involved in the first quarter. And there were a lot of like McHale was playing well. OG had 12 points in the first quarter. Brunson was getting his shot. So I think that was just kind of a product of just where the ball was going. Second quarter, you just saw Cat like over and over again bulldozing Tobias Harris. And Harris actually is like quite a good post defender. At least he's had a very good season defending the post, but on faceups, like it was so obvious. Like he just had zero shot in the world of slowing down Karl-Anthony Towns. Like some of the easiest layups you've seen Cat get all year. But I think a big factor in that was like it was a wide open lane because Duren was playing Hart again like a shooter and treating it like the Knicks were 5 out. So I'm curious if things change a little bit, if Detroit makes that adjustment and says Jalen Duren, like the plan is to give Josh Hart open threes, but it was a great shot making first half, because like even at times, like when the Pistons did defend him pretty well, like he was just making, like he had that long face up 2 over Tobias Harris. He had the drive by Cade where then Duren was at the rim and he finished through Duren, went right at Tobias for another runner. Then in the second half, like I actually think Detroit's defense on it was much better in the second half, and Cat had just gotten to a rhythm at that point and was making a variety of really tough shots, like a couple of baseline fadeaways that were just ridiculous. I do think over the course of the series, if I were Detroit, I'd be optimistic about Cat taking some of those shots, because I don't think he's going to sustainably hit them at a high enough rate for New York to be scoring as efficiently as they should against this Pistons defense. So I do think there are adjustments to be made, but I thought that was good. And to your point, great adjustment by Tom Thibodeau, consistently using Cat at the level. Some of the rotations are going to have to be sharper as the series goes on. And I do think Cat can sink back a little bit more when it's OG and Anunoby on Cade, just because OG is so much better than McHale fighting through that initial screen. And I don't think you need the all-out blitz. But overall, if you're going to switch to a single strategy, clearly empowered Cat. It's very similar to Julius Randle, allowing him to play with momentum, play with speed. He's a far better defender, so that was all really encouraging. What wasn't encouraging was Jalen Brunson's first half. His second half, though, a completely different story. We're going to talk about that all in just a sec here on Locked On Knicks.
But first, we want to let you know about our friends over at DoorDash. And NBA fans, you know what time it is. Playoff season means big performances and even bigger rewards. DoorDash is bringing the heat with a slam dunk deal for Dash Pass members during the 2025 NBA playoffs. It's called They Swoosh, You Score. Anytime a player drops 50 or more points in a playoff game, Dash Pass members score free 3-piece crispy tenders combo from Wingstop the very next day. Just place an order of $20 or more, use the code WINGSTOP50 at checkout, and that combo is yours. Crispy, delicious, and totally free. Offer valid noon to midnight the day after the game. Terms apply. And man, that's going to be me. Talk about coincidence. The Knicks have Wingstop on their team. And if one of them goes for 50, or literally anyone goes for 50, you too could be part of Wingstop. That sounds pretty cool. And I love some tendies, especially after a game, or even during a game, honestly. Like, it would be pretty sick. Like, if someone got 50 the day before the Knicks play, then I could get those tendies and have them during the Knicks game. That sounds pretty good to me. So here's the play. Sign up for Dash Pass to unlock this and more exclusive deals all season long. When any player scores 50 plus in a playoff game, Dash Pass members get to grab a free 3-piece crispy tenders combo from Wingstop the next day with a $20 plus order and code WINGSTOP50. That's Dash Pass, your door to more savings, more flavor, and more ways to win. Terms apply. All right, we're back in. Keep talking through this 123-112 win for the Knicks over Detroit. And Gavin, you alluded to it. Jalen Brunson, despite, if you're just looking at the box score after this game, 34 points, 8 assists, 12 of 27 shooting, 2 of 5 from 3, 8 of 10 from the free throw line. You might look at this and be like, wow, what a complete effort across this whole game for Jalen Brunson. And yet, most of that damage came in the second half, where Jalen Brunson ended up second half of this game, 23 points, 8 of 12 shooting, 1 of 2 from 3, 6 of 8 from the free throw line, 5 assists. So much more damage in the second half than the first. And a lot of that even came in the fourth quarter. The big thing with this one was the shoes, apparently. He got asked about it after the game. First half, it was looking ugly. He was sliding all over the place. He, on top of his play, it's just like it looked like he turned his ankle like twice. Like twice he came up kind of like and he was wearing, all right, as a shoe aficionado, he was wearing probably his favorite shoes that he wears all the time, the Kobe 6 Grinches, which are like a grail to anyone. It's no wonder that he brought those out for game 1 of the playoffs. It's definitely one of his favorite shoes that he has, and one that he wore a lot this season. And then comes out in the second half and actually has different shoes on. I think after the first couple minutes, I think it was after he subbed out the first time in the second half, goes back to the locker room, comes back out in different shoes, balls out down the stretch. So I don't know what was going on with those. Maybe he wore them a few too many times and they were a little slick on the bottom or whatever, but something was not right with the Grinches today. The Grinch almost stole the first playoff game from the Knicks. But just in terms of how he was playing, it felt like first half, it almost felt like he was forcing things. Like he was trying to get to his spots. There was a couple of possessions where he just kind of like ground the possession to a halt. I'm trying to remember who he ended up one-on-one with at one point, but the shot clock was winding down and he just was like trying to get by this defender. It wasn't Thompson. It was someone much less imposing in the overall scheme of things. And he just got kind of stranded around the free throw line and then just like pump faked himself into oblivion and like tried to get a shot off and just got like absolutely stuffed on this shot attempt. And I think it was second quarter. I don't know. I forget totally. It's all kind of a blur now, but either way, things were just not looking good in that regard. He seemed just off. I mean, it was just, it seemed like something was bothering him. I couldn't quite nail it down, but like he wasn't getting as close to the hoop on his drives as usual. So he was having to try to take these like really awkward angles to try to get things to go in. He also just like was looking for foul calls, I think a little too much. Like there was one in particular where like he was driving and he was kept kind of far away from the hoop. And instead of like gathering once he realized there wasn't anything really there, like he hadn't heard a whistle yet and yet just like winged it up, and like it was such a bad attempt that I think it even created a Detroit fast break the other way, because he just kind of like winged it up at the backboard and it just kind of like flew off of it. So it was just kind of a weird first half for him, but he got it together in the second half, particularly after the shoe change. So I hope whatever shoes he threw on, I don't know if it was his Joker Player Edition Kobe 5s or which ones it was. I didn't quite catch which ones he threw on after the Grinch Kobe's, but stick with those. I think those are probably the ones for the series if the second half is anything like what we can expect the rest of the way out.
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned it before, but two for 13 was the start, which is about it. I know the first 2 games against Philly last year were bad. I if I'm remembering correctly, I don't think they were quite that bad. So maybe a little bit of a new playoff low. And to your point, culminates tonight, 5th 30 and 30.8 assist game for him in his Knicks career. That is as many as every other person to ever put on a Knicks uniform in the playoffs, that was from Knicks Muse. Pretty crazy stat. I'm with you. First half, I think a lot of the issue was he was trying to draw fouls that probably are called in the regular season and just were not called in the playoffs. And in the process of doing that, and also I think just trying to find his rhythm and trying to be the guy, the hero he's been the last few playoffs, like just missed a lot of open guys, like twice missed, like he's never been good throwing lobs to Mitch. And I think a lot of times it's a height thing and he doesn't see it, but I wish sometimes he would just almost like do what Trae Young does and throw like a half blind lob and be like, screw it, Mitch up there somewhere, because so many times Mitch is up there somewhere. Maybe Tibbs tells him not to throw that pass because he doesn't want to risk Mitch turning his ankle or someone pulling Mitch out of the air or something. But so often like that is open. And I just want Mitchell Robinson rewarded for everything he's doing on the defensive end. Missed like Deuce open on a spray for a 3, missed McHale open on a spray for a 3. Did have one really nice pass in the first half where Mitch rolled and 2 went with him. And then he did a skip pass to the opposite corner to OG. That was exciting. But just a lot of forcing in the first half, and a lot of honestly what I feared this playoffs would be, where you have these like 5 extremely talented offensive players on the floor with the starters, and it's just Brunson like forcing up really tough shots when like he could be like on a night where he wasn't shooting well, could be leveraging his gravity to get other guys the ball. Fortunately, I don't think his process changed all that much in the second half. It just, the shots started falling down, right? Like a turnaround fade over Asar Thompson, a step back on Malik Beasley. And you could tell at that point he was heating up, like he got it to Hart as he was falling down to hit a 3 to end a 7-0 run. Late in the third quarter, starts the fourth quarter in the locker room, jogs out, like heroic moment, subs himself in for Deuce immediately 3 minutes in the fourth. And that was pretty much when the Knicks 21-0 run started. And in that run, like I mentioned, like just so many times getting out in transition, had that late isolation on Asar for a bucket. So certainly made up for it. Finished the game 10 of 14 after that 2 for 13 start. I just think he has to be a little bit more focused early in games on creating for teammates, because Detroit's paying him a lot of attention and the moments are there, but the Pistons are anchoring their defense around stopping him and crashing into the paint. And if he just leverages that, Alex, into shots for other guys, I think they're going to be in a really good position going forward. And I do think it's worth noting, just because we tend to pile on Cat when the defense is bad and ignore it for Brunson. I do think outside, he executed a couple of hedge and recovers decently. I thought the defense was pretty bad. And there were a few times on Tim Hardaway where we just fell asleep and gave up either easy layups or relatively easy threes. So that's something that has to get better. Overall, you're happy he's healthy, and you're certainly happy that he just looked like Jalen Brunson down the stretch of this game.
Yeah, Brunson is definitely needs to give maximum effort on defense to not be a negative type dude, and it becomes much less forgivable when he's not being a positive on offense, which was definitely the case in the first half. And even like to start the second half too, in that third quarter, I thought that a large part of the Pistons run that they went on, there were a couple buckets that you could pretty much directly attribute to Jalen Brunson. Just it was mostly the Tim Hardaway Jr. ones where it was just like someone had to go get that guy, and it was Jalen Brunson. So yeah, definitely not his best game overall, which again, it just makes it crazy to think about, like the fact that I spent half of this game lamenting Jalen Brunson and he still ended up with 34 and 8. So if this is the floor in this series, in this playoffs, maybe the Knicks are even better than we think, because, we of course know that Jalen Brunson has it in him to potentially string together 3 40-point games in a row or something like that and absolutely carry this team at certain points during the postseason. So we'll see if that comes to fruition. But OG Anunoby had a fantastic game in this one. I think we definitely need to give him his flowers for it, because just a crazy 7 stocks for him in this game. Played fantastic defense from like start to finish of this game on Cade Cunningham. They did not rotate that assignment at all. That was OG Anunoby's job pretty much the entire night. So big ups to him for that. So we're going to talk about that, and also what he did on offense, and maybe just a few other notes, like how Tobias Harris just went absolutely insane for the Pistons and fell back to earth. And if the Pistons have something to worry about, if they don't get that version of Tobias Harris every game too. So we got a bunch more to talk about when we get back in just a second.
The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props, from three-pointers to steals to assists. FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. All right, welcome back into Locked On Knicks. Knicks, it didn't look good there for a while in the third quarter. Could have been having a very different conversation on this pod, but then 21-0 happened. Man, I feel like I'm going to remember that number for forever. I don't know if we mentioned this in the first segment. It was the Knicks' longest unanswered run on the entire season. What an incredible time for it to happen. Certainly help that Detroit panicked a little bit, like missed some good shots, and just a lot of like unforced throwaways. It was pretty clear the Knicks got in their head, pretty clear the Knicks sped them up. But the head of the snake for everything that went well for the Knicks defensively was OG Anunoby. Alex, 23 points, 7 rebounds, 7 stocks, 5 steals, 2 blocks, 44 minutes, 8 of 18, 3 of 8 from 3, 4 from the line. And I think sometimes like you look down on a guy when a stat line was tilted towards one half. I think it was pretty obvious they needed him more in the first half than in the second half. 19 points in the first half, 12 points in the first quarter. Kind of made all the difference with both Brunson and, at least in the first quarter, Cat getting off to slow starts in this one.
Yeah, and he just like I think that part of, before we even get to the defense,
Yeah.
part of what I think was so valuable about what he was doing was that he kept Cade, at least for a little bit in this game, especially in the first half, like sort of in foul trouble a little bit.
Mhm.
Like he had him enough tilted that he was able to like make him defend differently. And then from that point on, it seemed to get easier for OG. Like Cade ended up on him most of the time on defense. And OG was just kind of like, kind of hitting him with the too small a little bit, which is crazy. Like there was a lot of those moments in this one. There was Cat just continually working Tobias Harris, but then also OG in the first half just kind of trucking through Cade a
Mhm.
number of times and getting all the way to the hoop and finishing there. Also hit from three, like 3 of 8 from three in this game. I thought he just gave them everything that they needed in the first half. Like to your point, with Brunson not playing as well, they kind of it hit the point where like they turned to OG to be like that tertiary like creator again, like they had to, like when it was sort of reminiscent of the first game when Brunson came back in that Suns
Mm.
game, right? Where Brunson seemed like kind of uncomfortable still and like he hadn't quite gotten his sea legs back. And they relied on OG a lot still, like they had when Brunson was out. And they didn't quite go to the highest highs of the OG, primary experience that we had during the time when Brunson was out, where he's like, saucing guys up on the perimeter and hitting like step back threes and all this stuff. But just getting downhill and getting inside, generating some free throw attempts. Like he was second on the team in free throw attempts with 4 of them in this game. Like that's all valuable stuff. And, it's good to know again, like I think we all thought that this was going to be Mikal Bridges' role at the beginning of this season. And I don't think that he had like a necessarily bad game per se, or at least not terrible game, but certainly
Mhm.
did not have a very impactful offensive game. And OG kind of just like took that mantle and sort of is just kind of taking it by force throughout this whole season of like, I am the third offensive option on this team. And especially down the stretch of the season. And now this first playoff game, like he kind of showed like, hey, Brunson's kind of off. Cat's still finding his way. Like I got us until they get going. And then it was nice because then the second half he was able to kind of just focus in on eating Cade's lunch and just making his life a living hell for the entire second half. The 7 stocks. I mean, he was just. Uh, what more can you say about the guy? Like it was honestly a crazy defensive performance considering the fact that like. And again, I'm not saying this to like get on Mikal or something, but we've seen like certain parts during this season where like with a defensive matchup this rigorous, like we've seen by the end of games, if Mikal gets like put on the other team's primary for the whole game, like by the end he seems a little gassed, like just from having to get over those screens and just play physical with that guy and keep him in front of him and everything else. And like Cade, it probably helps OG that Cade is not like he's sort of like a tall Jalen Brunson in some ways. Like he's not like super fast or like, he's not like Tyrese Maxey last year where he was kind of like blowing by OG and like
Yeah.
kind of exposing the one type of player that OG can't really defend that well in a one-on-one situation. He's like very methodical, tries to read the game. He uses his dribble package and just the fact that he's got like a good first step and stuff like that to get by you and all that. So kind of a perfect matchup for OG. And OG was just able to like stay in front of him like 90% of the time. Bottled him up a number of times, would allow for those blitzes and those quick doubles to get on him, and then just kind of bottle him up for that split second that it took to make him make a rash decision. I mean, Cade, by the time all was said and done in this game, ended with 6 turnovers. Like, I, I don't know what his average is for the season, but that seems pretty uncharacteristic for a guy that everybody is like, he's a great like game manager and great at like picking apart a defense. Like to force him into 6 turnovers, I think mostly goes to OG for the fact that he was able to make him uncomfortable the entire game. It was just a total masterclass for OG. Like I thought it's crazy that Brunson had 34 and 8, and yet I think he was probably the third most impactful player in this game, if not maybe even the fourth, if you want to like give Cam Payne that award for the third place with that run that he went on. But I thought that what Cat and OG did on the defensive end was like probably the most important thing in this whole game.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because we spent like a whole week discussing, all right, how are we going to guard Cade? How are we going to guard Cade? And there were a lot of people made really good cases for let Cade cook and shut down everyone else. Like Cade, I think our buddy Xavier Justin, XJ had the stat like 33% on pull-up threes, 0.88 points per isolation, if I'm remembering correctly. And he actually is pretty turnover prone. He 4.5 per game on the season. But to your point, like can just like pick you apart as a passer. That is what happened at times in this game, right? Because on top of the 6 turnovers, he was just 8 for 21, like not a particularly efficient scoring night from him at all. Did have 12 assists, a bunch of them leading to threes, had quite a few like hockey assists, like where the Knicks blitzed and then they made the initial rotation and then Detroit just made one more pass and they found someone for an open 3. I think it's something to watch going forward because if I'm Tom Thibodeau, I don't necessarily see the success they had tonight and say like, all right, that is default what we're going to do on Cade the rest of the series in terms of blitzing him and putting 2 on the ball and sort of daring him to be a playmaker. I think I would lean a little bit more towards challenging him to be a scorer, but I only say that because OG Anunoby's on him, and OG did an exceptional job fighting through screens. I think to your point, like how the Knicks bought that extra second was that Cat was very aggressive on those shows, but it was also that OG, like unlike Mikal, who is another XJ stat, but B-ball index, I didn't know this. He was literally, out of guys who got substantial minutes this year, he was the worst screen navigator in basketball this year, which is a conversation for another day and is a very concerning number. But OG is fantastic, getting around, fighting, and over again, just made things really tough on Cade. And then to your point, I mean, he did show up some good bag stuff in this game. Like there was a play early where Cat was doubled in the post, cross court spray to OG. OG just like brilliant, like pass fake to Brunson, knowing Hardaway would bite on it, then drained to 3. Had a screen with Mitch where he snaked it back, got back to his right hand, hit like a righty flip layup. I think this is one of the plays you were talking about, post up on Cade, one dribble, step back, fade away over him. That was nasty after getting an early steal in transition. Step back midi over Schroeder to beat the first quarter buzzer. Had like a mean block on Cade halfway through the second. In fact, Cade literally only scored once on OG the entire first half. It was in the final minute of the first half. Cade finished 3 for 10. The other 2 buckets were both on Mikal Bridges. Transition 3 off of a Mitch steal to end the first half with 19 points. Had another just dirty turnaround to open the second half. And then the defense in the fourth quarter, his ability, I think off ball, like it was very similar to what he was doing against Tatum in that Celtics game, over and over again denying Cade. I thought it is like just another example that OG Anunoby gets better in big games. And because of how good he is, it honestly makes me question what Mikal Bridges' role on this team in this postseason and going forward is going to be. Because with this version of OG Anunoby, Alex, I think you'd be better off with Dante DiVincenzo and having like another great floor spacer if he's going to be this good on offense and he's going to be just clear cut your number 1 option defensively. And to your point, none of that's to say that Mikal was awful or anything. I actually think Mikal, like I thought his defense was good, had a bunch of nice passes that didn't get paid off. And yet, like you just almost don't really need his shot making if OG is going to be this good offensively.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, maybe just having Mikal in your back pocket, and if he can just on a dime recapture some of the offensive prowess that he had at the end of the season, then maybe you just kind of say, oh, well, if OG doesn't have it going one night, then at least we know we have Mikal. If Mikal doesn't have it going, at least we know we have OG. Like, I don't know, maybe that's their overall strategy. Maybe there is. I mean, look, I'm willing to give Tibbs a little more credit than I would have been willing to after this game, because I thought the Knicks actually did come out and like had a real plan for this game, which give him props. I mean, I guess it's like what happens if you get like a full week to prepare for an opponent. I thought that they did a little better of a job of like game planning how to attack the Pistons offensively.
Mm-hmm.
In that case, maybe there is literally a plan of like, okay, we actually are going to try to unleash Mikal a little more in the second game because we have that luxury of having 4 players that could potentially be the highest scoring guy on the floor any given night. With the 4 guys, I mean, I guess maybe that's discrediting Josh Hart. I suppose there was a game where he could go for 30 or something. But yeah, I don't know, maybe that's part of the plan. But let's talk about Cam Payne a little bit before we get towards wrapping up here. Cameron Payne, 14 minutes, 14 points, 5 of 7 shooting, 3 of 5 from 3. You mentioned it. I didn't catch this because I was watching a New York bar where they had turned on MSG because the Nuggets game going into OT delayed the start of the ESPN broadcast. So They turn on the MSG one. I got to lightly hear Clyde talking in the background. Did not hear the Breen bang with like 8 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. But Cam Payne just came in, best version of himself, just the gunner, the confident dude that you needed him to be. He was very reminiscent of like honestly what he did to the Knicks in the playoffs last year when he was a member of the Sixers. Just coming out there and just letting his cojones hang and just
swagging out. Is swagging out an okay term?
Sure, something like that.
There was some aura. There was some aura.
He was letting him hang. You know, it was just like he was out there. Just the ball touched his hands, he shot it, and it went in. And that was what the Knicks needed at that moment. I don't know how much more to even add to it because literally, like, almost entirely what he did in this game was just score a bunch of points in a really short amount of time. Was a plus 23, which was best on the entire team in 14 minutes and 40 seconds. Just nutso stuff. But credit to Tibbs. This is where I'll give Tibbs a little bit of flowers for this one too. In the past, you know, with how he runs rotations and everything, you would have probably thought, you know, hey, Cam Payne could have made a clutch three, you know, that one to make it like 98 or whatever, or even before that. And Tibbs would have been like, oh, well, but Brunson comes in for Payne. So Payne has to sit now because it's Brunson's turn to come back in. And yet, I mean, maybe it had something to do with the fact that Payne was at the free throw line at the moment when he was getting ready to sub Brunson back in, but he let those two cook together and it worked. Like it was good. And I mean, I don't fault him. Like it kind of came at the expense of Deuce McBride in that case, who just didn't really have it going. Like just didn't have his shot tonight. Didn't look as comfortable as you maybe would like. Did have 4 assists. So like he was handling the ball quite well in the time when Payne was out there with him, but sits Deuce down, brings Brunson back in and plays those two together. And it works crazy good. Like they played really well off of each other. And I think because of just how much of a pest that Payne is, and the fact that like Detroit didn't have like crazy size on the floor at that time, they were able to make it work defensively, and it paid off huge because then he just continued making shots. And like for once, Tibbs didn't just like stick to the playbook and instead said, let me just ride the hot hand, and did it to great effect. And then I would argue that decision probably won the Knicks the game based off the fact that he left Cam Payne in there and he just kept making shots. And then eventually when he finally subbed him out, then it was like, okay, now the game is pretty well in hand at this point. So props to Tibbs for that, but props to Cam Payne for frankly, again, not to be hyperbolic, but like saving this first game for the Knicks. Like he basically did that.
Yeah, I mean, I said it earlier, but and we probably, and we're not going to talk about it enough because it just didn't end up being the story of the game. But Detroit, like the Knicks were terrible in the third quarter. Like Mikal was invisible. I thought both Brunson and Cat at different points were just getting exposed defensively. OG was a lot quieter. Like Harden, his minutes didn't make much of an impact, and it just sort of felt like this was. I kind of felt like the vibe of our podcast, like the Pistons were going to hold on. They were going to win it. And it was going to be one of those things where it's like us complaining about Jalen Brunson, complaining about Cat not shooting enough threes, like just giving Detroit credit for like being really tough and like punching the Knicks in the mouth. I do think it helped the Knicks a lot, and we'll see where he's at going forward. That Isaiah Stewart went out, like he finished this game. Again, you don't want to read too much in a single game, plus minus, but in 19 minutes, he was +8, while Duren in 25 minutes was a -20 in this game. And I just watching, like, particularly these last 2 games, I come away thinking that I'm much more comfortable with how the Knicks can attack Detroit when Duren's on the floor than when Stewart. I think Stewart is just a infinitely better defender, and it does not overly change things for Detroit when Duren's on the floor in Stewart's place offensively. So if Stewart was healthy, I'd be playing him like 32 minutes a game if I were JB Bickerstaff. Asar Thompson was saucing out. He had that nasty spin move. Like things were looking pretty bleak. And to your point, like Payne, it was just a vibe shift. Like he came in boombox. Like he's like the was it McNeese State student manager aura, where he just plays it and everyone gets hyped up. I don't totally remember the details of that, but anyways, he completely changed the game for the Knicks. I'm with you. Maybe the Knicks don't get that again, but you know what? Detroit probably doesn't get one half where Tobias Harris plays like a clone of prime Carmelo Anthony. So we'll see how that evens out. I think we can finish this one up unless you have any final notes by just shouting out Mitchell Robinson. I know at times this year we said he looked like he's in great shape. I think now he actually is in pretty close to the best shape of his career. Like his first bucket of this game was in semi-transition just chasing, like running a full sprint behind OG Anunoby and ultimately cleaning up his miss. I thought even Brunson sucking wasn't as harmful as it could have been because I think Mitch put back his misses 3 different times. So it was like, it was basically the same thing as if Brunson made the layup. The best one, of course, was that full extension, almost volleyball style. Like he like spiked it in off a miss. That was insane. Loved him swatting a Cade Cunningham 3. Like again, like when it's OG and Mitch guarding Cade and Mitch can be in drop and OG's fighting through a screen, like I feel like Cade just does not really have any kind of answer to that other than to spray the ball and hope the Pistons play well out of a 4-on-3. That was amazing. Got another block on Cade before the end of the first half. Got another stop on a switch. Only played like a little less than 4 minutes in the second half, which I think was maybe a mistake from Tom Thibodeau. It's hard to say because Cat ended up being good enough defensively to warrant that time. And obviously, even when Mitch is getting every single rebound, Cat's always going to be the better offensive player. But I would like to see a little bit of a longer stretch. The Knicks were -9 in Mitch's minutes. I do think a lot of that is the fact that just Brunson was missing so many shots over that run and Detroit making threes. And again, you don't want to read too much into that, but I do think it'll be interesting to track over the course of this series how the double big lineup works, because to your point, we got it for what, like 8-9 minutes. And the first time we've ever seen it with Jalen Brunson for substantial minutes. And I was pretty happy, particularly on the defensive end with how it looked.
Same, and I don't have too much more to add. I love ending on giving Mitchell Robinson some props because I thought he looked fantastic as well, but I don't really have anything more to add to what you said there. So we have the next game on Monday. Hopefully another win. Hopefully the Knicks can take care of business at home and then head to Detroit to try to take care of business there too. But we'll see what happens when we get there. We'll be back with more episodes for you guys this week. Of course, there are big breaks between games since the playoffs, so we will do our best to fill that time for you guys and give you good things to listen to. But until next time, thank you all for listening, and we will talk to you all soon. But first, make sure you subscribe to the Locked On Knicks Daily newsletter, lockedondaily.com. Subscribe to that thing. Get that $2,500 Best Buy gift card, the $300 Game Time gift card, or the Fanatics $200 gift card. You know, go win yourself some free stuff. I mean, why not? It's pretty cool. All you have to do is hit a subscribe button. So do that before April 30th. And potentially get yourself a big old prize. But till next time, thank you all for listening. We'll talk to you soon. Peace out, everybody.